trans tomboy. It was really upsetting to watch Fetterman struggle with aphasia, knowing how Republicans would use it against him.
Yeah.
You could see he knew when the wrong words were coming out, and I can only imagine the frustration one feels when the pressure and stakes are that high. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how people react to it. Like, I mean, I think like me as someone who is a political analyst, I see that, and I think that's going to be problematic on some level for people who watch the debate directly. I don't know how many people are, and like I say, my barometer in terms of what low information voters are getting is always like, well, that's why I listen to that AP News in the morning. So I've mentioned this many times before. Some people have suggested that it's going to make people sympathetic to him.
It's hard to say.
I would be surprised by that, but I guess it's conceivable. But
I'm curious what voters in Pennsylvania who are like not nearly as like plugged in politically or as like
I'd be shocked if we don't see some type of focused
like
test.
right, of like what his debate performance did for like kind of a low information.
We should find that outfit that did the focus test.
I'll take a look. I'll take a look for sure.
Manasseh, I'm honestly really happy the moderators didn't acknowledge him as Dr. Oz and instead said Mr. Oz the whole time. I don't know how that's debates work, but it felt like a tiny moral victory when the rest of the night felt like an earthquake.
Manasseh.
Professional dumpster fire. For my criticisms of Fetterman going to Albright and being a Sheetz guy, I genuinely believe he wants to raise the standard of living in Pennsylvania, something of our rural areas desperately need. Many of our small towns were ravaged by the opioid crisis and have sold public municipal infrastructure due to bankruptcy. Pennsylvanians need help, and I do not believe Oz wants to do anything to help any Pennsylvania other than those living in the main line. I mean, I guess we'll see.
I mean, look, we'll see. Also, the whole narrative about Biden being in his basement and not being able to like actually communicate didn't end up affecting the results really for Biden. But I mean, that was a very particular set of circumstances in the wake of the pandemic. So I don't know. I feel terribly for Fetterman. It's just awful timing. I mean, It was tough. It was tough to see that because he is such an excellent candidate, in my opinion. But yeah, we will have to see.
Todd Ferguson, anecdotal evidence of Fetterman-Oz debate reactions. I work at a suburban jewelry store with a lot of older conservative women as customers. All of them so far have expressed sympathy and empathy for Fetterman. Interesting. I see a lot of YouTubers boosting how bad Fetterman looked in terms of his recovery. Sam, as a self-proclaimed propagandist, do you think it's the duty of leftist media not to play into that? I mean, I think you have to acknowledge that from the perspective of people who look at debates as, you know, from a performance standpoint, and then assume that that's what people are going to take away from it, that Fetterman came off poorly. I mean, I just think you have to acknowledge it. But I do think also, and I think look, and I feel like we I do this with debates all the time. Even when I think that my preferred candidate did better, you always got to look really on there's really two things that you have to follow that with. One, the spin is as important, if not more so important, to the extent that, debates can have any impact anyways. And two, that really hard to predict how a general audience is going to respond to something like this. It's really hard. And so like I say, I would not have necessarily predicted that a lot of older conservative women would be sympathetic to him there. But when you say it, maybe it makes sense to me. Like, oh, here's a guy who is a little scary to me because he looks like, Lurch or something like that. But to see him going through the same problems that I know people, I've known people who go through, maybe that's humanizing. I don't know. I mean, I really do think that we need to see at least, some like polling or focus testing or something.